This video is on the periodic trends of the periodic table. We will go through 4 different trends. You will be expected to know, if I give you 2 elements, which one has the highest of the trend that I'm asking for. So first I want to look at the periodic table in general. We've already talked about this, but it would be a good idea to get out your own reference table and write the following things that I'm going to talk about on your reference table. We've mentioned valence electrons before. Valence electrons are the electrons on the outermost energy level. You are responsible for knowing how many valence electrons an atom has simply by where it's located on the periodic table. Group 1, 1 valence electron, 2, group 2 has 2, 13 has 3, 14, 4, 15, 5, 16, 6, group 17, 7, group 18, 8, except for helium. Helium is the only one that does not match this. It only is on energy level 1, and energy level 1 can only hold 2 electrons. So therefore, helium only has 2 electrons. And if you can't remember that, look at its atomic number. It only has 2 protons, so in a neutral atom, which in most cases helium is, it's only going to have 2 electrons. A few things that I just want to emphasize on these groups. You've talked about these in the last video. Group 1 are your alkali metals. They are the most reactive metals, most metallic. Group 17 are your halogens. They're the most reactive nonmetals. Group 18 are most nonmetallic. So the trends, the first one we're going to talk about is ionization energy. This is the energy required to remove 1 electron from a neutral atom. So the higher the energy, the harder it is to remove it. The lower the energy, the atom's just pretty much going to be giving them away. So we just talked about the definition of ionization energy. Now you've got to be able to tell me what happens as you go down the group, because groups are your columns, and what happens as you go across the period, which is your row. Doing this, you should be able to tell me if it goes up or down, and then you should also be able to tell me why. Key thing there is why. So as you go down the group, ionization energy decreases. So as you go from Na to Cs, it goes down. Now the reason why is because of the added energy levels. Because remember, hydrogen only has 1 energy level, and then if you go all the way to Fr, it has 7. So what's happening there is the higher the energy level, the further away it is from the nucleus. So the analogy I use for this one is long-distance relationships. Typically, they don't last because of that space between them. The electrons are the same way. The further away it is from the nucleus, the easier it is to take them away. Then you have the period. Remember, period are your rows. As you go from Na to Ar, the ionization energy increases because the atomic number. It increases the nuclear charge. It makes it more difficult to remove the outermost electrons. So as you're moving across from Na to Ar, you're adding on protons in the inside and you're adding electrons on the outside, all in the same energy level. So you're adding positives and negatives. So what happens with those positives and negatives? They attract each other more and more. The more you have, the more attraction. So it's harder to take away those electrons. So therefore the energy goes up. In your notes you have a rectangle beside ionization energy. You need to draw these arrows showing that ionization energy increases up and to the right. These rectangles will help you decide the answers to the next question. So looking at your periodic table and the arrows that you just drew, which atom has the highest first ionization energy? So again, when you're answering these, you need to look at the position of them on the periodic table. The trend increases as you go up and to the right. So for both of these questions, you're looking for the atom that's furthest up and to the right. Take a second and answer. You should have gotten nitrogen and neon. Next, atomic radius. It simply just tells you the size of the atom. In groups, it increases. So as you go down, the atomic radius increases because of adding on energy levels. So this is just like in the wintertime. You might start off inside with just a tank top on because your house is blazing hot. But if you're about to go outside, you're going to start putting on layers. You might even have one of those giant puffy coats. So as you're adding on those layers, you seem to get bigger. That's exactly what's happening with the atom. As you add on energy levels, you get bigger. As you move across, it all comes back down to the same words that we were just looking at with ionization energy, nuclear charge. Because of that attraction between the protons and electrons as you're moving across the period, it causes those electrons to move towards the nucleus. Again, draw the arrows showing the trend. Atomic radius increases as you go left and down. So, out of all the atoms on the periodic table, your biggest atom is going to be francium because it's the furthest left and down. So take a second and answer these questions. Which one has the largest radius? Out of beryllium and barium, barium is the furthest left and down. Calcium and bromine, calcium is the furthest left and down. Atomic radius, I just did. Now we're doing ionic radius, is the size of the ion. Remember, an ion is anything that has a positive or negative charge because it has lost or gained electrons. So there's not really any errors with this. This is you've got to know this slide. There's some key information that I'm going to point out that you've got to understand. So first, vocabulary words, cation and anion. A cation loses electrons. When it loses an electron, it causes the attraction between the remaining electrons and nucleus to increase. So therefore, since that remaining charge is there and causing it to increase, the size will get smaller. Anions gain electrons, so pretty much it has the same attraction, so it's going to get bigger. This is the key slide. If you can remember this information about cations and anions, you will be good to go. Cations, since they lose electrons, have a positive charge. When you lose a negative thought, you become more positive. They get smaller, and typically your metals are the ones that form cations. Anions are the exact opposite. Anions are negative because they gain electrons. They get larger, and they're your nonmetals. One of the things that we do to help you remember this is if you can remember cats and onions. Onions smell bad, they're negative, so anions, negative. If you're not a cat person, I'm sorry, but cations, cat, think about petting a cat, doing whatever. Cats are cute and sweet, they have a positive. So take a second and look at this and just make a prediction of what you think the answer is. Which of the following has the larger radius? With sulfur, you either have S or S2 negative. This 2 negative means that it is an anion. So since this is the anion, anions get bigger. For aluminum, you're comparing Al to Al3+. The 3+ means that it is a cation. Cations get smaller. Last trend, electronegativity, is the ability of an atom, of an element, to attract electrons. So it's their attraction ability, how well they can bring those electrons to them. In groups, the electronegativity decreases when the atomic number increases because of added energy levels shield the power of the nucleus, the exact same reason for ionization energy. the more layers you have between it, the harder it is to attract. It's like living in North Carolina and trying to get a boyfriend or girlfriend all the way in California. It's hard to do that if you're not there. In periods, electronegativity increases. Again, two key words: nuclear charge. It makes the nucleus more powerful to hold on to the electrons. One key thing with electronegativity that you've got to remember is noble gases, group 18, have electronegativity of 0. They are the noble gases. They are the kings. They don't need any more electrons. They are perfect the way they are. So they're not going to attract them. So their electronegativity is 0. Okay, so on your rectangle that you had, you need to draw an arrow up and to the right. And I would just put a circle around the end of the rectangle and write this out. Except for noble gases have an electronegativity of 0. And please, I'm going to trick you with that. You've got to remember this. Okay, so let's test your skills. Which atom has the higher electronegativity? Li, or C, is going to be carbon because it's furthest up and to the right. Second one, Cr or Kr. Which one is furthest up and to the right? Kr is furthest up and to the right, but it is a noble gas, so it is 0. Please make sure after this video you go back through these trends and you understand each and every one of them, because tomorrow or sometime you will have a quiz on this information.